Discover the incredible twist when a hidden connection blooms on a blind date with a CEO dad. Charlotte S. Hart felt like a tangled knot as she scrubbed in for another night shift. The fluorescent lights of the hospital were harsh, illuminating the strain of sleepless nights and endless responsibilities. She loved her job as a nurse, but the daily weight of her father's illness and the memories of the cherished bakery where she once laughed with him took a toll. Each patient she cared for reminded her that life's sweetness was hardly enough to overshadow her burdens. Her sister's concerned, yet nagging, kept pushing her toward a blind date with a stranger. A CEO, Charlotte. Just one night off, what's the worst that could happen? But every time she thought about it, shame curled in her stomach. She felt like she was betraying her father, his unconditional love ringing in her head as she contemplated an evening of frivolous distraction. An escape sounded delightful, yet the guilt weighed heavier than her longing for freedom. They didn't understand. Could one night really thread joy back into the fabric of her life? She sighed deeply, lost in conflicting thoughts as she navigated the hospital halls, the chime of monitors intertwining with her racing mind. Her responsibilities meant everything. The bills were piling up for both her father's medical care and the fading memories of their bakery. Charlotte reluctantly plucked at her phone, checking the matchmaking app her friends had coerced her into downloading. No longer could she deny the flicker of nervous anticipation mingling with her dread. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment she met Jake in a chic restaurant, a warmth spread through her. He was more than a dashing business executive. There was something in his eyes that seemed familiar, comforting, but also daunting. She found herself leaning in as he shared tales of his successes. Yet all she could think of was her father's bakery, how much love and soul had been kneaded into each loaf. As they spoke of dreams and regrets, Charlotte felt a sudden wave of recognition wash over her. She described her father's pride in every croissant that graced the bakery's counter and how it had become a sanctuary for her family. Jake's amber eyes darkened as he leaned closer, revealing he'd spent years coming to that bakery, his favorite spot before life had pulled him in other directions. The layers of guilt and ambition danced behind his words that resonated within her. But with each word, Charlotte felt an anxiety creeping in. Had she invited him into the warmth of nostalgia, only to shatter it with raw truths? The echoes of their past found a way to intertwine, creating a tension neither expected. Shadows of their distant choices grew heavier, and as the realization settled, Charlotte's heart raced violently. She had obligations to uphold, family bonds to honor, and yet, a deep yearning for connection tugged at her. Jake was both comfort and chaos, his ambition reminding her of her own forsaken dreams. The night danced on, filled with laughter and burgeoning chemistry, but this only deepened the storm within her. Could she truly allow herself to connect with someone who had ties to her fractured past? The line between joy and responsibility blurred, leaving her with a decision breathing heavily down her neck. Step one way into the warmth of potential love, or stand resolutely in the shadows of family loyalty. The tension twisted painfully as revelations hung unspoken between them, leaving Charlotte at the brink of an uncertain future, a future that now flickered with a radiance she could not yet grasp. Would she remain entangled in duty, or venture into uncharted waters fueled by undeniable chemistry? As hope and fear collided, the question lingered. Could this blind date weave together lives marked by profound regret, or would it drive an even sharper wedge into the closeness they both secretly craved? Charlotte's breath hitched as the evening wore on, the warmth of Jake's company stirring a conflict deep within her. With every laugh they shared and every glance exchanged, Memories of her father and the bakery surged to the surface. She could almost hear his gentle voice, reminding her of the importance of living fully, not just surviving. But every smile she forced felt like a betrayal, a step further away from honoring his memory. How could she take a step that would feel like a departure from the life they had shared? The tension between desire and responsibility was palpable. Charlotte watched Jake as he animatedly recounted an anecdote about an investor gone astray, his passion igniting something dormant in her. She realized how long it had been since she had felt anything other than exhaustion. Was it possible to reignite her own ambitions, to explore parts of herself that had languished under familial binds? Jake had shared his aspirations so openly. Why was it so difficult for her to articulate her own? As the conversation ebbed and flowed, a sudden resolve washed over Charlotte. She may have been enveloped in a whirlwind of emotions, but she wouldn't let uncertainties defeat her. Perhaps allowing herself to be vulnerable with Jake, to share more about her father and the bakery, would bridge the gap between them. Slowly, she began to share snippets of her life, her father's legacy, and the heart behind every recipe that came out of their ovens. With each word, she could feel the weight of her past lighten, transforming her pain into empowerment. Jake listened intently, his expression a blend of empathy and intrigue. "Your father sounds remarkable, Charlotte. There is so much depth to your story," he replied, his voice steady and encouraging. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, and they were the only two people in the universe. The light in Jake's eyes nudged her, reminding her of the dreams she had buried deep within. Invoking her father wouldn't drive them apart. It could draw them closer. She was no longer afraid of the past. It was time to redefine it. As the evening wrapped itself around them, Charlotte closed a chapter of a painful past to embrace the budding possibilities before her. She gently touched on her aspirations, the glimmer in her eyes, unexpected yet alive. The thrill of rediscovering herself emerged through their exchanges, a renewed sense of purpose blossoming within. A thought took shape. What if she could find a balance between being the dutiful daughter and pursuing her own path? But just as hope ignited, an unsettling thought darted through her mind. Was Jake part of that path, or merely a distraction? A fleeting moment veiling deeper truths? Her father's teachings echoed. Life was not just about moments of happiness. It was about choices, integrity, and forging connections that aligned with one's core values. By the time they strolled out of the restaurant, the cool evening air kissed her cheeks, yet Charlotte's heart raced with clarity. Jake turned to her, a question at the tip of his tongue, and she saw the possibilities stretching out before her. She could either race ahead, leap into the unknown, or pull back into the safety of familiarity and fear. Before she could respond, a blaring siren in the distance snapped her thoughts back to reality. Her phone buzzed loudly in her pocket, an alert from the hospital. Within the chaos surrounding her conflicting emotions emerged a stark reality. There was an emergency that required her immediate attention. It was a reminder of her professional responsibilities, but also a pivotal moment to evaluate what path she would choose when circumstances pushed her toward the unknown. Jake's face bore a mixture of concern as he witnessed her shift from elation to urgency. "Is everything okay?" he asked, that familiar warmth in his eyes dimming. The decision hovered precariously in the air. Was this the moment to chase her ambitions, or would the call of duty pull her back into her familiar realm of caregiving? Would she risk disconnection for a chance at reconnection? Charlotte's thoughts swirled, tethered to the weight of her choice. With each tick of the clock, she felt the shift within herself. Every second was leading her closer to a revelation, an opportunity for transformation. What lay ahead demanded courage, both to embrace her past and forge a new path with someone who resonated within it. As she stepped into the night, Charlotte grasped the prospect of intertwining her passion with her obligations. Yet, would her path with Jake illuminate new horizons, or would she ultimately choose the shadows of her former life? The siren faded into the distance, But the call to consider her next step echoed louder than ever, urging her to confront the truth about herself, the bakery, and the bonds they once held. Charlotte stood frozen, the bustling city around her fading as adrenaline coursed through her veins. The hospital alert consumed her thoughts, an emergency requiring her immediate attention. But as she glanced into Jake's concerned eyes, an unexpected sense of determination began to take root. She had spent so long living only for others, and now she was teetering on the precipice of change. Everything's fine, she forced out, even as uncertainty knotted within her. Jake's eyes searched hers, and she felt the weight of unspoken truths hanging between them. It's just work. I need to go. It's okay, I understand. But you know you can share this stuff with me, right? The genuine sincerity in his voice both comforted and unsettled her. Could she rely on him for support as she updated her life, or would it only deepen the confusion? Charlotte turned sharply, her mind racing. There was no denying she felt a connection to Jake. It was magnetic, pulling her forward with both excitement and trepidation. Yet here she was, about to head back to the same cycle of caregiving that had suffocated her dreams. Would she let this opportunity slip away, or would she boldly carve out a space for her own aspirations? Decision weighed upon her, and she took a deep breath. "Jake, can we talk about this later?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The longing to share her fears and hopes lingered in the air thickly. I just need to handle what is going on right now," she added quickly, hoping he would understand. He nodded slowly, but the flicker of disappointment in his expression stung her more than she anticipated. "All right," he said, the warmth replaced with something muted. "Just promise me you'll reach out when you can." Charlotte nodded, her resolve strengthening. Each step toward the hospital ignited a renewed sense of purpose. She was not simply Charlotte the caregiver. She could pursue her own dreams while still honoring her father's legacy. Indecision had plagued her for too long. It was time to reclaim her narrative. As she arrived at the hospital, the familiar antiseptic smell enveloped her. The chaos beckoned her back to the role she had mastered so well. Yet this time, she refused to allow it to consume her. She navigated the emergency room with the deftness of experience, assuring herself that being a dedicated nurse didn't need to overshadow her burgeoning ambitions. Hours passed, blend of urgency and care weaving through her work, but in them, Charlotte began to see new colors of possibility. Each moment spent with patients was a reminder of the compassion that drove her and the unique capabilities she possessed. She was no longer just fulfilling her duties. She was also reimagining how her skills could serve her aspirations. After her shift concluded, Charlotte stepped outside into the night once more. The city shimmered, the streetlights illuminating her path with a sense of potential. She could feel change lurking in the shadows, whispering encouragement as she replayed snippets of her conversation with Jake. What if she truly let herself explore the budding emotions she felt? What if sharing her journey could forge a connection that would ultimately empower her? With the night stretching ahead of her, Charlotte found clarity in the decision to engage with her passions and to open herself up to the possibilities that lay with Jake. But as hope filled her heart, a nagging worry crept back, and could she truly allow the intimacy of her father's memory to coexist with a new relationship? The inner conflict ignited a deeper determination within her. She had to confront these questions head-on rather than let them meld into the background noise of her life. As she journeyed toward home, Charlotte felt the thrill of both fear and excitement mixing in her chest. There was so much left to uncover, choices left to make. And with every step, she recognized that the next moment of truth was on the horizon, waiting to unravel the path that would ultimately shape who she would become. What would this divergence mean for her future? With Jake, and for her own identity? She had taken the first steps toward merging her past and her ambitions. But would she have the courage to embrace both? The city felt alive that night, each flickering streetlight pulsing with the rhythm of possibility and doubt. As Charlotte walked toward her apartment, the fatigue from her shift faded, replaced by a growing anticipation. She was ready to confront not only her dreams, but the fear of sharing them, particularly with Jake. Once inside, she moved through the familiar motions of preparing dinner, each task grounding her amid swirling thoughts. She sliced vegetables with purpose, envisioning her future taking shape with every precise cut. But her mind flitted to Jake, his earnest eyes and sincerity that had left her rattled. Did she have the strength to let herself rely on another? A sudden pang of uncertainty gripped her. A stitch of fear wound tightly in her chest. The rhythmic sound of chopping turned into a lullaby for her anxious thoughts. She needed clarity. It was time to take the plunge into the very uncertainty that so terrified her. As the aroma of sautéing garlic filled the kitchen, she mentally crafted a plan. Tonight, she would write down her goals, her aspirations, and the fears that held her back. The act of putting pen to paper felt transformative, almost empowering. After dinner, she settled at her small kitchen table, a blank notebook opened before her. She wrote systematically, mapping her dreams away from the stifling confines of caregiving into the realm of personal ambition, pursuing advanced certifications, exploring opportunities in health education, and perhaps creating a mentoring program for new nurses. Each thought spilled forth, unfolding possibilities she had never dared to consider. But inevitably, Jake intruded on her contemplations, and with him came the unresolved tension. She scribbled down her feelings, navigating the terrain of vulnerability, the worry that love could be a sweet distraction or a perilous detour. Would embracing these new emotions with him conflict with cherishing her father's memory? Or could it be a tribute to the life he had shaped for her? A sudden knock at the door jolted her from her thoughts. It was the hour for unexpected visitors. Hesitation washed over her as she approached, curiosity mingling with anxiety. When she opened the door, Jake stood there, a small bouquet of wildflowers in hand. "Hey, I just thought," he started, glancing at the flowers as if weighing his next words carefully. "I want to check on you after your shift, and maybe to see if you want to talk." His hopeful expression pierced through her internal turmoil that Charlotte's breath caught. Here was her opportunity, yet uncertainty fluttered in her stomach. Did she welcome him in or retreat into the safe boundaries she crafted around her heart? The conflict between her budding feelings and the fear of exposure crashed over her. Can we sit outside?" she suggested, suddenly feeling the need for openness. Fresh air would help clear the thick atmosphere that hovered between them. Outside, seated on the small balcony, the city's sounds created a comforting backdrop. Charlotte fumbled with her words, apprehension blurring her focus. "I've been thinking a lot about everything." She hesitated, carefully considering how to reveal her struggles and aspirations. Jake leaned closer, his attention unwavering. "You don't have to hold back with me, Charlotte." His encouragement emboldened her. She began sharing her thoughts, peeling back the layers of her ambition while grappling with the emotions Jake stirred within her. She needed to confront her dependency. What was she expecting from him? But as she began to speak of her fears, the doorbell chimed once more, interrupting their moment. An unexpected visitor needed to see her now, pulling Charlotte away from the emotional intimacy she had just begun to explore. The urgency rushed back in, a stark reminder of her caregiving role that had defined so much of her life. She sensed the crossroads ahead, where her responsibilities and desires collided. "Sorry, I really need to answer that," she murmured, retreating to the door. As she opened it, an unwelcome surprise awaited her, and her heart sank. What awaited behind that door threatened to envelop her in chaos yet again. She steeled herself, knowing the decisions she'd soon face would not only impact her aspirations, but also the newfound bond she had just begun to forge with Jake. Would she allow the tumult of her past to hijack the potential of her future? Charlotte gripped the doorframe, her heart pounding as she braced herself for the chaos she felt looming just beyond the threshold. Opening the door fully revealed not just the unexpected visitor, but a wave of tumultuous memories. Standing there was her estranged mother, a figure she hadn't seen in years, bringing with her a lifetime's worth of unresolved emotions. Charlotte, her mother's voice quivered, laden with uncertainty. The sound was both familiar and foreign, unsettling the ground Charlotte stood on. "Mom," she breathed, the word feeling strange in her mouth. There were years of hurt wrapped in that single-syllable, years spent filled with unanswered questions and a longing that had dulled but not vanished. "What are you doing here?" "I didn't know if you'd want to see me," her mother admitted, glancing down, shifting her weight as if the burden of the past was physically pressing upon her. "But I need to talk to you." The moment hung suspended, the air thick with the unsaid. Charlotte's mind raced. She had been on the brink of a significant revelation with Jake, gathering the courage to share her ambitions and insecurities. Here stood a ghost from her past, capable of shifting the very foundation she'd just begun to lay down. "Can we talk?" Her mother pressed tentatively. There was a tremor in her voice that suggested contrition, perhaps even regret. Charlotte wrestled with a surge of emotions: disappointment, anger, longing. But overriding them was the realization that she was at a crossroads, not just in her relationships, but in her broader ambitions. She felt the grip of her caregiving responsibilities tighten around her like an anchor, but perhaps this was an opportunity to redefine her path. Maybe we can talk outside," Charlotte conceded, stepping back to let her mother enter. The decision was an impulsive one, propelled by an instinct to confront the past, rather than let it simmer in silence. As they took their seats on the small balcony, she could feel the familiar uncertainty creeping back, but this time it was laced with a strange determination. Once seated, they were quiet for a moment, the distant sounds of the city serving as a backdrop to this unexpected reunion. Charlotte studied her mother, seeking remnants of the woman she once idolized as a child. However, resentment marred those memories, creating a haze over their connection. "I never meant to hurt you, Charlotte," her mother began, breaking the silence. "After your father, I just didn't know how to be there for you." The words hung in the air, uncertain and frail, much like their relationship. Charlotte felt a wave of conflicting emotions. She wished for explanations, but also yearned for her own space, the independence she worked so hard to build. "I've had to learn how to navigate life without you," she stated, her voice steady but laced with bitterness. "It's not easy watching someone move away when you needed them the most." Her mother's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and a part of Charlotte felt a pang of empathy. Yet, she was painfully aware that acknowledging that empathy meant risking the control she had worked so fiercely to maintain in her life. The urge to share her newfound ambitions surfaced, clashes of want and fear bubbling just below the surface as the conversation draped over them. Charlotte began to peel back the layers of frustration she'd built around her mother's absence. In doing this, she caught glimpses of herself, the woman she longed to become, defined not by her past, but by her choices. Yet the specter of Jake remained in the back of her mind. Could she develop a relationship with him while untangling this complex web with her mother? "What do you want from me?" she finally asked, piercing through the heaviness. Her mother hesitated, unsure. Yet in that moment, Charlotte realized that the heart of her uncertainty was not only about her mother's intentions, but also her own. She was at the threshold of a new opportunity, a chance to forge connections, both with Jake and possibly with her mother if she dared. The stakes had never felt higher. What if she could embrace these complicated ties and remain authentic to her ambitions? The thought filled her with both hope and dread, underscoring that the most significant challenges would not come from her past, but from how she chose to face the future. As the conversation continued, revealing dormant feelings and unsettling truths, the door inside her, once tightly shut, creaked open. Little did she know, while she grappled with these emotions, Jake had waited patiently at the bottom of the stairs, curiosity mixed with concern. Would he linger in silence? Or would he choose now to confront the chaos that surrounded Charlotte? Charlotte's world felt like it was tilting in a staring contest between her past and her potential future. The flickering shadow of her mother lingered, threatening to consume the newfound light she had started to illuminate. Each word exchange felt like a step toward unraveling, rebuilding, or perhaps tethering herself once again to what she thought she had escaped. "I want to understand you," her mother finally admitted, her voice breaking with urgency. "I've missed so much, and it feels like I've lost my chance." Charlotte's heart raced. In that moment, she faced a choice: to fortify the wall she had built around her life, or to allow her mother to cautiously step through the cracks. Not only did she hold the keys to her past, but now she sensed the urge to reclaim something forgotten in her own narrative. "What do you think I was doing all these years?" She shot back, anger wrapping around her words. She felt alive in that frustration, a fierce creature ready to defend its territory. "I was holding everything together. I had no choice but to grow up." A heavy silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the distant hum of city life. Charlotte's thoughts collided, each one vying for dominance. Her dreams of pursuing a career in design, the tentative yet promising connection with Jake, they all felt in jeopardy with her mother now at the forefront. Could she trust this moment enough to unfold her ambitions? "Let me in, Charlotte," her mother urged, her voice softer now, tinged with the fragility of someone desperate to be heard. "I've come here because I want to be a part of your life again. I want to understand who you've become." A storm brewed within Charlotte. The notion of letting someone else in, especially someone who had caused her so much pain, felt insurmountable. Her instinct was to recoil, to shield herself from the vulnerability that came with openness. Yet, she caught a glimpse of herself reflected in her mother's pleading gaze. The raw truth was that she craved connection. She ached for validation. What if I tell you about Jake?" she said hesitantly, testing the waters of this fragile truce. "He has been supportive, and I really like him. I want to explore whatever this is." Her mother's face shifted, a mixture of surprise and something resembling relief. "Then you should. You deserve that, whatever it takes to find happiness." "Happiness," Charlotte echoed, the word hanging heavy like a paradox. "You think I can have that while trying to understand everything that happened between us?" For a brief moment, her mother didn't answer. Yet the silence was pregnant with unspoken acknowledgement. Charlotte's heart raced anew, thundering not only at the prospect of facing her past, but also at the burgeoning vision of a future filled with complexity and uncertainty. "Maybe I don't know how," she continued, her voice steadying. "But if I let you in, it means exposing myself, not just the hurt, but the dreams I'm pursuing. You have to understand that I need to stay true to my path." "Then let us find it together," her mother replied, a hint of determination fighting through her own sorrow. There was hope in those words, a chance for both of them to break free from years of suffocating silence. As they began to untangle the threads of the past, Charlotte felt something shift within her. A redefinition of self, a quest for authenticity alongside the potential for reconciliation. Meanwhile, somewhere below, Jake's presence loomed larger. The unresolved anticipation simmered. Would he still be waiting? Would he be willing to step into this tangled scenario, becoming part of the mix that was Charlotte's complicated life? The question clung to the air like an echo, refusing to fade. Just as resolution flickered in the space between breaths, tension pulsed anew this time, not only from the past, but from the flickering possibilities of the future. With a final glance exchanged, a realization dawned on Charlotte. Her journey was becoming a tapestry woven with threads of courage, hope, and uncertainty. And at any moment, she could choose to embrace the chaos rather than cowering from it. Would her next move bolster her emerging ambitions, or would she retreat once more into familiar shadows? Charlotte's heart thrummed in her chest, a palpable mix of anxiety and anticipation. The conversation with her mother, while unsettling, had opened a door she wasn't sure she was ready to walk through. Her thoughts turned to Jake as the potential for a deeper connection nestled in her mind like a wildflower, daring to bloom amidst the chaos of her past. Yet uncertainty gnawed at her What if her newfound openness led to fractured dreams rather than vibrant aspirations? As she stepped out of their conversation and back into the pulsating rhythm of the city, she pulled out her phone, looking for Jake's name among her contacts. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the screen. Doubts flooded her mind. Would sharing her turmoil push him away? Or could he be the anchor she desperately needed? With a deep breath, she tapped the screen. "Hey, do you want to meet tonight?" She hit send and felt a mix of relief and dread wash over her. The air outside was crisp, invigorating, almost buzzing with potential. She took a moment to breathe it in, using it as a grounding force to pull her courage together. While she awaited his response, her mind wandered back to the designs strewn across her drafting table, each a fragment of her ambition, each line a part of her future. Yet the vision felt fuzzier now, jumbled with the ghosts of her past. Could she truly align her ambitious trajectory with the complexities of her family dynamics? The phone chimed. Jake's reply came swiftly. "I'd love to. How about the Scarlet Lounge?" Relief flooded over her. He was excited, perhaps even invested. Maybe this evening would help her draw clearer lines between her emerging self and the tangled remnants of her childhood. As she arrived at the Scarlet Lounge, the chic ambience enveloped her, a stark contrast to the heavy emotions still swirling within her. The dim lights danced with shades of optimism, and every face seemed lit with laughter and expectation. She felt a flicker of hope that she was stepping toward a new chapter, one where she could embrace who she was becoming. Jake was already there, his presence commanding yet calming, a stark reassurance amidst the fluctuating tides of her thoughts. He looked up and smiled, that friendly smile that always seemed to reach his eyes. The initial nervousness she felt began to ebb away. Perhaps sharing a piece of her life, a piece of her heart, in this safe space with him would lay the groundwork for something authentic. "Hey," he said, voice warm over the ambient sound. "I was getting worried you might flake on me." "No chance," she replied, forcing her smile to hold. "I really needed to come." They settled into easy conversation. Yet, beneath the light-hearted banter, her internal dilemmas simmered. With every laugh they shared, Charlotte barely scratched the surface of her complexities. As the evening wore on, she sensed that the moment to share the truth about her mother was approaching. It was a risk, and she needed to gauge how he would respond, if he would be able to handle the weight of her reality. Just then, a familiar figure caught her eye from across the lounge. It was a well-dressed man, eyeing the room, exuding an air of authority. A shiver ran down Charlotte's spine. Her heart raced, not just from the realization of his presence, but from recognition. Her thoughts spiraled into the frightening realization of who he was. Could this evening turn sideways in a moment of revelation? She turned back to Jake, who was recounting a story about his latest design project. The sincerity in his voice anchored her, but the looming question remained. Could she pull the courage to admit the truth of her life without jeopardizing everything that was beginning to bloom between them? As uncertainty wrapped itself around her, the moment shifted. Jake's phone buzzed with an incoming call, his expression momentarily shifting from engaged to distracted. Would he turn to her, recognizing the weight of her story, or simply fade into the noise of the evening, with the shadow of the past closing in and the possibility of the future? Flickering between them, Charlotte had to decide. Would she reveal her hidden truth or retreat into silence, allowing her potential to slip through her fingers? The tension hung heavy in the air, ready to tip the scales in one direction or another. Charlotte clenched her fists under the table, her heart racing as she watched Jake's attention shift towards his buzzing phone. It felt like a fork in the road, a pivotal moment cloaked in uncertainty. She had invited him to uncover layers of her life. Yet now the specter of her past loomed over her, a constant reminder that fully disclosing herself meant risking everything, including her budding relationship with Jake. As he answered the call, the dim light around them wavered, mirroring the chaos inside her. She forced herself to breathe steadily, her mind racing through the implications of either choice. What would happen if she shared her reality? Would Jake step closer, supporting her? Or would he be unable to comprehend the depth of her struggles and drift away, like the countless others before him? Jake's focus on his call left her in a sea of daunting introspection. She wrestled with the paradox of her desires. She yearned for genuine connection, yet feared the vulnerability to attain it. The well-dressed man across the room caught her eye again, his confident posture stirring memories she had long buried. Her mother's voice rang in her ears, urging her to stand tall and face the truth head-on. "Sorry about that." Jake was back, his eyes apologetic yet bright. "I didn't mean to leave you hanging. Just family business." The words hung in the air, beckoning vulnerability. It made Charlotte think of her own family. In that instant, she wondered if sharing her history could offer them a deeper bond, much like his open connection with his family seemed to provide him. Family business can be heavy, can't it? She ventured, her voice steadier than the turmoil inside her. It felt risky. Could she draw him in without revealing the full weight of her reality? "Yeah, it can be," he replied, a hint of understanding in his tone. "What about you? Any family complexities bubbling under the surface?" Her pulse quickened at his boldness, the invitation threading a desire for honesty through the air. This was the doorway she wasn't sure she was ready to walk through, yet here it was, an opportunity outright. She hesitated, her mind filtering through memories of late-night fights with her mother, the constant pressure to succeed, the feeling of inadequacy that seeped into her skin. "You could say that," she finally said, her voice trembling just slightly but resolute. "My relationship with my family is complicated." Jake leaned forward, genuinely intrigued. "I can relate to that. It's tough navigating family dynamics sometimes." "You're not alone." In that moment, a ripple of hope ignited within Charlotte. His openness resonated, encouraging her. What if she could take this small step towards exposing her vulnerabilities? Perhaps sharing her truth might pave the way for growth, not only for her professional aspirations but also for her emotional landscape. The realization stoked her determination. She could confide in him, at least partially. "My mom, she's a tough figure in my life. Her expectations feel like a weight sometimes, making it hard to breathe, you know?" Jake's gaze softened, the genuine concern in his expression making her feel seen. "I get it more than you think. Do you feel pressure to meet her expectations?" Charlotte could feel the wall she'd built around her heart beginning to crack, each word a tiny liberation. "Every day, it's as if no matter what I accomplish, it's never enough for her." His sincerity bridged the emotional chasm she often felt in conversations about her past. "That's a heavy load to carry," he reflected, his voice low and steady, "but you shouldn't have to carry it alone." Her gut twisted with conflicting emotions, hope, fear, and an insistent yearning to connect. The truth was spilling slowly but surely, a beacon illuminating the path toward not only self-discovery, but perhaps the beginning of mutual understanding. Yet the lingering presence of the man from across the room reminded her of the realities she fought to escape. She took a breath, casting a glance toward the familiar figure. "I feel like everything could get turned upside down at any moment," she admitted, her voice firm with resolve but laced with fear. Jake's brow furrowed as he followed her gaze. "What do you mean?" In that instant, she was faced with another choice. Would she reveal the full story? Or would she keep her life's complexities shrouded in mystery, as she had done for so long? Ready or not, Charlotte's truth was brewing on the edge of revelation, and with it came the thrill of uncertainty. As the man shifted, her heart echoed her thoughts. The time had come to face what she dreaded the most, and finally break free from the past. With resolve pressing against her conscience, she breathed in deeply, preparing to take a leap into the unknown. Charlotte's heart raced as she held Jake's gaze, the weight of her thoughts surging forward. The familiar man across the room, the one who had simply lingered in her periphery, was now a haunting shadow, symbolizing everything she had fought to escape. Yet in a moment of clarity, she realized that the path toward her own liberation lay in moments like these, in the stark truth of who she was, not just in the shadows of the past. Everything else felt so precarious lately. She decided to share, her voice firm, yet slightly tremulous. I suppose I'm scared of losing the few connections I have because of these expectations. Each word felt like an unfastening of chains, and for the first time, she sensed the potential and vulnerability a chance to rewrite the narrative she had lived by for so long. Jake leaned in closer, his focus intense. Have you had experiences where those expectations became too burdensome to handle? It can be freeing to talk about it. His question rippled through her mind, forcing her to confront the interplay of her ambitions and her mother's expectations. Charlotte continued cautiously, "Oh, all the time. Like, I graduated from college at the top of my class, but it didn't seem to impress her." The remorse in her voice was palpable, and she inhaled deeply as if steeling herself for the next words. "I think the pressure to succeed has made me lose sight of what I really want. I don't think she sees me for who I am, just what I can achieve." To her surprise, Jake's face reflected deep sympathy, and Charlotte felt the walls begin to crack further. "It sounds like you've spent a lot of time trying to fit into someone else's understanding of success. What do you want, Charlotte?" The question struck her with unexpected force, challenging her ingrained belief that her worth revolved around accomplishments. "I've always wanted to be an artist," she confessed, their environment fading away as the truth surged within her. "But I buried that dream under a mountain of fears and obligations." The atmosphere shifted, the air seemed thicker with understanding. Charlotte reveled in the openness, her heart pounding both from fear and the exhilarating taste of liberation. Yet, a part of her hesitated. Could she fully relinquish her fears in this burgeoning relationship? What if Jake's astonishment blurred their connection, damning her to loneliness once more? Seeing the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, Jake took a steady breath. "It's never too late, you know. Maybe this weekend you could paint something, just for yourself. No judgment, no expectations." His suggestion danced on the fringes of her mind, awakening a desire so intense it almost frightened her. Perhaps this was more than just a connection. It was a chance to reclaim who she truly was, to step into a new version of herself that her mother had never allowed to blossom. But just as her resolve solidified, her gaze flitted back to the man who had haunted her thoughts. He was moving toward them, his demeanor hard and unyielding. Charlotte's heartbeat quickened, her thoughts racing. Tangled in her longing for change and this unexpected confrontation, she felt the split in her resolve. "Jake, wait," she started, urgency spilling in her voice. "I need to tell you something." There was a moment, a breathless pause where worlds hung in balance. Would speaking her truth be the key or the lock? The familiar chill of doubt gripped her heart, even as the allure of authenticity beckoned. And as the man approached, Charlotte realized she was about to unveil not just her fraught history, but perhaps the way it intertwined with her present, a revelation that could change everything forever. Charlotte stood at the crossroads of her life, unresolved tensions and newfound ambitions swirling in the air. Each breath felt loaded with anticipation as the well-dressed man drew closer, a symbol of her past, a past that constantly threatened to unravel her present. Jake leaned in, anticipation etched across his features. She could feel the gravity of her decision pressing down on her, almost suffocating. This was the moment of truth. Would she allow vulnerability to tether her to a brighter future, or let it dissolve in the face of her fears? "Charlotte," Jake began, but her resolve sparked a sudden clarity. She could not afford to shy away from her reality any longer. "Jake, please. I need to tell you something important," she urged, her voice laced with urgency. The gentle buzz of the lounge faded as her focus sharpened. He gave her a nod of encouragement, the warmth in his expression fortifying her fragile spirit. "Okay, I'm listening." With a deep breath, Charlotte steeled herself to face the tangled threads of her identity. "I've been so consumed by my family's expectations and the shadow of my past, especially with my mother back in the picture after all these years. It's overwhelming." Her heart raced as she opened the door to her fears. She hadn't even begun to scratch the surface of the tumult she felt since her mother's return. Jake's brows furrowed in concern, encouraging her to continue. Take your time. It's okay to feel that way. Charlotte pressed forward, feeling the weight of years lift as she spoke the words that had long been buried. I grew up feeling like my worth was based on achievement, a perfect daughter, a perfect student. But when my father passed away, my mother just vanished. I had to keep everything together. The bakery fell apart, and my heart with it. I pursued nursing to honor my father's legacy, and it feels like all I do is nurse other people's hopes while mine fade away. Releasing those burdens allowed her to breathe again. Jake listened, his face a canvas of understanding. You've carried so much alone, but pursuing your own dreams does not diminish your father's legacy. His insight cut through the fear that had gripped her heart. But what if I let you in and lose everything? She whispered, connection teetering on the edge of vulnerability. Jake reached over, placing his hand on hers. You want to lose it. You'll only find more of yourself. You're not just your past, Charlotte. You can redefine what success means to you. As tension ebbed, the ghost of a man loomed nearby, nearing their table, yet nothing else mattered. It was a reminder to embody her truth. The decision crystallized within the real achievement lay not just in success, but in vulnerability. By the way, Jake began, nodding casually toward the man. Is he someone important? Her heart pounded, realizing it wasn't about the man that mattered, but the opportunity to rewrite her story without being tethered to its past. With newfound clarity, she let go of the weight. That's just part of my past. I'm trying to escape. I'm ready to move forward. The man approached, and Charlotte saw her unresolved turmoil wash away under the light of her newfound confidence. I don't need to be defined by this, she said firmly, more to herself than to Jake. As the past unfolded like a map revealing hidden paths, she took Jake's hand. I want to paint again. I want to dream again, she affirmed. Her eyes sparkled with determination. Then let us do it together, Jake replied, a contagious excitement brightening his face. In that moment, she felt not only the tensions of her family heal, but also the threads of her ambitions begin to weave into a vibrant tapestry. The urgency to escape her past dissipated, to confront it head-on became essential. Charlotte's heart swelled with purpose. Not only was she reclaiming her ambitions, but she was also ready to nurture vital relationships that mattered, starting with this burgeoning one with Jake. As the man retreated, uncertainty gave way to resolve. Charlotte knew she was embracing her new identity, a talented nurse, an emerging artist, and now a woman unafraid to let love into her life. This was the decisive shift she had been yearning for, one that would shape her future, where dreams and relationships could coexist without compromising her essence. They stood together, fully present, ready to construct a world woven with truth, ambition, and authentic connections. Charlotte marveled at the path ahead, a landscape freshly painted with courage and vulnerability. It dawned on her that this very moment marked not just an ending of confusion, but the beginning of everything she had ever desired. Now was the time to seize her destiny, to step boldly into the life she was meant to know, a life rich with possibilities. She smiled at Jake, the warmth between them illuminating her decision. This was merely the beginning of a life authentically lived. It was time to embrace love, ambition, and identity not as separate entities, but as pieces of her soul merging in harmony. Now, dear viewers, as the curtain draws on this chapter, it's your chance to be a part of the next journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will unlock your own dreams. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm you need to support what inspires growth. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion below. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative story. Don't wait even one more second to share the light of resilience.